Hi, my name is Jeff Pagano, and welcome to the Harpin On Rugby podcast. Joining me this week is someone back for cap number 68. Welcome back to Mr. Mark Jackson.
Thanks for having me back, Jeff. Although not the greatest weekend in general for Irish rugby, but hey, let's get on with it.
Yeah, exactly. We have to harp on it whether it's win or lose. That's kind of what we committed to. But let's turn our attention to that feature match of the week. Here is a generic 80-word summary of how things went. France dominated Ireland in the 2026 Six Nations opener, storming to a 22-0 halftime lead through tries from Biel Barry, Jalibert and Olivant. Their pace and precision overwhelmed an error-prone Ireland who struggled for territorial control. Biel Barry's second try secured the bonus point early in the second half as France moved 29-0 ahead. Ireland rallied with scores from Timoney and Milne, but Atisogbe's late finish sealed a comprehensive 36-14 French victory and a powerful championship statement. Now, obviously, we'll be going into a little bit more detail than that. And to start things off this week, Mark, you want to have a look at the principal areas where Ireland were being dominated last Thursday. Now, I know some cynics will say that was everywhere, but in reality, there were some key areas where we fell short.
Yeah, listen, there's going to be times where things don't go your way and see how they respond to it. And one thing that didn't go Ireland's way and doesn't go Ireland's way when we apparently don't perform too well is the ruck. For me, as an ex-player, I played at a pretty decent standard. I've coached at a decent standard. You know, there's so many aspects to this game, but for me personally, I think the dominance of the ruck area is what usually decides what the outcome of the game is going to be.
Yeah, and was it particular players that were maybe falling short, or was it just our overall approach, or was it just that the French were just that much better?
The 80-word summary there had two words in it: pace and precision, and add power to it. I think those three parts are parts of the game. When it comes to the ruck, where for years we had Joe Schmidt, was all about ruck speed. Everything was all about continuity and cleanliness of the ruck. And I think when Ireland play well, or supposedly play well, I think that is still up there with what we see Ireland doing well. It starts with ball carrying. I think our ball carriers were stopped on the gain line a lot at the weekend, which didn't allow us to get any sort of quick ruck ball at all, which, I don't know, led to a lot of kicking, a lot of back football that is very hard to play from, and it doesn't matter who's playing 9 or 10. It's very hard to control a game from back football. When your better carriers like Hill and Doris and Joe McCarthy were being stopped on the gain line again and again and again, rucks are hard to win. The least amount of people you can commit to a ruck, the better. But we have to commit more numbers into early rucks, it seems, at the moment, to win any sort of clean ball to play from. And to be fair, on Thursday night, it just wasn't there. France worked out quite well that we played a very contestable kicking game, which they won quite easily. I thought we'll go into that in a while, but I think the ruck really, really dominates the game on Thursday night. France were on it all day long. They at times they let Ireland have the ball, and then they picked their moments to really, really attack the ruck. They didn't have a huge amount of turnovers, such as clean turnovers, but they never have against Ireland. But they really, really put us on the back foot with the physicality they brought come what we call the ruck collision areas.
Yeah, because, I mean, before the game, like when we did our preview, we were looking at areas. When you looked at the two lineups, you saw areas where we're obviously concerned. Obviously, the scrum was going to be one of them. We had a front row. We had a lot of injuries and stuff. And I think for the most part, I mean, we'll talk about set pieces and things later, but for the most part, a lot of the things we were worried about actually worked out okay. But this is one area where we probably would have relied on, we needed the high balls to turn into possession for us. We needed to, win those contestables, but also, like you say, the rucks and the first up collisions. And, when they're not happening, you can't get any traction.
It really doesn't matter what pattern of plays you've got, what set pieces you have in terms of set plays, number of phases, what I'm doing off second and third and fourth phase. When your first and second phase are just being driven off the ball or stopped on the gain line every time. We will touch on the set piece in a minute. You got to look beyond the actual just set piece statistics in terms of how easy it is to win your own ball or what you do when you win the ball. What happens in the next phase and the next phase after that? Is it actually a clean line out ball? Is a ball off the top? Is it a ball that's stopped two phases later? And the unfortunate thing for me on Thursday night was we just seemed to have this sort of 2-3 phases kick. I don't know why, but we've had a good kicking game for a long time. We probably haven't had the best of injuries with players like Hugo Keenan, who's great in the air, both defensively and offensively. But for some reason, as we say, every 50-50 seemed to go France's way. But I think that's down to a lot of good chasing and over chase. What I call over chasing. They seem to have a lot of people around the ball wherever it was, whereas we only had one or two. Whereas France, you're looking at 4 or 5 guys in and around covering the over kicks, any sort of tap downs in any direction they were going to go. France always seemed to have a player there.
Yeah, I mean, and let's drill down a bit into the sort of the physicality maybe around the rucks, and maybe look at maybe personnel kind of things, because on the one side you had we had Joe McCarthy, someone who'd be rely on for physicality. We had Ty Byrne in the row as well, where sometimes, we'd have him playing 6. So we had the two of them in our second row. But then, of course, on the other side, you've got Charles-Henri Vaughn, the experience head, and then this lad, Guillard, who, was player of the match and was very influential, so great offloading. But so was it a sort of a contrast there in performance-wise? Maybe Joe wasn't, maybe it wasn't his best performance, and then you had that kind of worldy kind of performance from Guillard.
He kind of did, but what the Olivon and Guillard combination did was they ran with pace, they ran at shoulders, ran at space, as opposed to actually running into people and trying to set up a rug. They looked to create space either for themselves or their offloading was great, but it wasn't actually worldly. They were soft hands. They were getting their hands through contact in relatively rough conditions. They didn't throw any stupid passes or any 50-50 offloads in the game for me. Everything seemed to be sticking for them, and fair play, because that was the sort of game plan they went out with. They went to attack shoulders. They had numerous guys flooding through channels. And I think when you've got somebody on your shoulder, it makes it just a bit easier as a ball carrier to use your feet in contact and not just have the very simple idea of let's just set this ruck up. For Ireland, every time I seem to be setting a ruck up, kick. And again, I don't know if that's what they went out with, the game plan or whatever. That's another thing to talk about, game plan in terms of stuff like that. But I think the execution of the precision of very simple passes from France really, really worked for them on Thursday night.
And in terms of rucks and collisions are like something that's like integral. And if you're talking, you look at the rest of Ireland's campaign where, we've got obviously 3 home matches, Ireland, Scotland, Wales. We're hoping to do well in them, but there's also a big trip to Twickenham coming up as well. I mean, is it something that, is it an easy fix?
It's definitely not an easy fix. You can go back to the personnel things when we'll talk about the A game and the 20s at the weekend. Every team that wore green, unfortunately, this week had issues in terms of generating any serious go forward from any position, be it momentum wise or standing start. Rugby is something that we hopefully have got out of the way. I just think in the last 2 or 3 games where we've not performed, be it South Africa in the autumn, France last year, France now this year, or France last year, the succession of France now, we just haven't had that go forward where any sort of attacking ideas are going to come to fruition for the team. You're going to have to look at personnel in some positions. I think for that, I think it's gonna depend on how good the defense is against you as well. England didn't allow Wales get any sort of momentum yesterday. They were pretty good on the gain line, and they were good last year against us, and have been for a couple of years. We struggle really to generate power rugby from the players we expect power rugby from. So there's got to be more to the game than just trucking it up and kicking the ball at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, and just finally on this issue, like of the rucks and collisions, I mean, to what extent? I mean, there's been obviously it was disappointing for Irish fans. You see a lot of reactions online. There's a lot of tropes that were there, and there's a lot of people trying to use this performance to fill narratives that they might have had going into it and stuff. But I mean, to what extent must you just factor in just how damn well the French played as opposed to what we were doing? Because you look at the team they picked. We saw the squad they picked before, and the people they left out. More to the point, they were able to leave out the likes of Fiku, they were able to like out the likes of Aldrit, but in all those cases they had players to bring in like Deporter. I mean, you talk about strong carriers and big collisions and stuff. So, to what extent is it kind of almost unfair to put all the emphasis on how badly Ireland might have done?
Absolutely, make no bones about it. France were really, really good on Thursday, but they weren't good at anything that is unexpected. They carried well, they carried from deep, they carried in numbers. It was almost like Western France in the 80s and 90s. Probably less flash. It was just so good in terms of how they carried, as I said, short little offloads or whatever. But they attacked a guy. They attacked with deep runners. Guillard especially, as he has won a man of the match. I thought Jagu had a cracking game, not only in with the ball in hand, but I think defensively France put us on the back foot. You know, the French players have always had this really interesting way of playing with the ball. They don't have to do anything world class to look world class. That's my own opinion anyway. Their passing was accurate. It was really precise. Their kicking was long. They made us want to play with their kicking game. I thought their kicking game put pressure on us in terms of, right, what are you going to do with it? And we just kicked it back to them and didn't win any collisions. Didn't win any contestables. So every time they wanted to kick, they kicked long, they kicked the space, and they made us turn around. And it really, really worked for them on Thursday night. They said in their interviews, Sean Edwards especially, it was like not playing against Ireland for 50 minutes. And that's a real dagger in the heart, really, for Irish people to hear that sort of chat from Galtier as well, saying that it was a very un-Irish performance at times, and that's what I would like to see change for Italy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you don't have to watch too much French rugby to know that the one thing you don't want to give them is sort of broken play transition kind of ball, because you know that they'll make the most of it. And you talk about there were a couple of lucky bounces and fortunate, like Sam's fly hack preventing a 50-22 going straight to them, and that incredible through ball from Ramos. It was things like that happen, but I suppose of all their tries, the one that they really created themselves was the last one at the very end, which was kind of they kind of had a second birth kind of thing. They wanted to get that last try after we rallied in the second half, and they kind of created that try. The rest all came from kind of loose kicks and loose situations, which we know they can hurt us on.
Yeah, there's a couple of situations there where we looked better. We had a couple of pick and goes around the corner. I know Michael Mill came on and had a bit of an impact there. But when France scored again at the end to sort of take it away again for us, they almost had a 4 or 5 minute period where they just said, right, let's knuckle down here, fellas. Let's really get back up the pitch and just see what we can do here. And they did. You had 4 or 5 minutes where they put together 3 or 4. And this is what I'm talking about, rucks, and why the rucks are so important. Their ruck speed was so much different in terms of speed and clarity. The cleanliness as well of their ruck allows them to develop just very simple patterns of play, and it's very hard to defend against because you're always catching up with yourself in terms of scramble defense. And when you're scrambling defense, the worst team in the world, as you said, to play against is France. The momentum is very good to watch if you're French. If you're Irish at Thursday, it wasn't great to watch from an Irish point of view.
Well, Elsewhere in the Six Nations, Italy opened with a gritty 18-15 win over Scotland, built on Lina's early strike and a late heroic 24-phase defensive stand in a Roman downpour. England then stretched their winning streak to 12 as Arundel's finishing and Ford's control put Wales to the sword. In Limerick and Ireland 15 were comprehensively outclassed 52-14 by a sharp, powerful England A side. The weekend closed with Ireland under-20s falling 50-21 to France, conceding 8 tries despite flashes of resistance. Myself and Mark will be taking a close look at those matches for our bonus chat, which you'll find on our YouTube channel on Monday evening. But now we must return to the Stade de France. And next, Mark, you want to have a look at the stats and the set piece from Thursday?
Yeah, our set piece, if you look at it on paper, worked a little bit better than it did against South Africa. Listen, it's not going to be hard to work it better, considering Matt Carley was given every penalty before we even were able to set a scrum against South Africa. But listen, the lads, Lockman and Clarkson, but mostly Lockman and Milne, will be probably way down the pecking order, probably 4th and 5th choice loose heads at the moment. And they did do a decent job of holding up the scrum. But listen, France weren't. South Africa are the only team that actually really, really go out and out for scrum penalties. France didn't at the weekend, but France were able to manipulate our scrum quite well, I thought. I thought they held it in for a couple of extra seconds, especially for their second try. The loose head just has 1 foot up on Clarkson, is able to create a blind side, and Tommy O'Brien is pretty much left for dead for that second try that France scored there. And it was how France manipulated our line-out, and our line-out stats were actually pretty good. I thought Dan Sheehan threw the ball pretty well, but how we attacked off it was very, very pedantic, very pedestrian. There's a couple of times we won the ball, I think, fairly early into the game where we won it, and it looked great. It was a good throw, good lift, but they were either off the top to a runner in midfield who got absolutely smashed on the gain line, and then it was just kicked from midfield, a box kick from midfield. And then there was a couple of plays where we had Josh van der Fleer using his hit, rip and feed just to another runner who was then smashed on the gain line. And again, no plays off of that. It was just kicked again. So you're looking at what historically would have been a really good area for Ireland to attack from. We historically have done very well off our attacking lineouts. But this game on Saturday, I think France at times, especially in the early part of their defensive game plan, for me anyway, it looked like they were letting us win the line out and then just literally getting off the line and smashing us back at will. That was really annoying that we didn't spot that after 2 or 3 times, and that we just kept doing the same thing. That was really annoying for me from a personal point of view. I think later on when France decided to put up players against us in the lineup, they caused some proper problems for us, and it's something to be looked at when we play against teams like England, who do put up a very good defensive lineout, and Scotland have a very good defensive lineout as well, actually. And Italy at the weekend played really, really well in defensive lineout, so it's something that we need to watch going forward in the Six Nations. Is not just the stats from the actual set piece wins, it's how they're developed and how we can use them as an attacking weapon, or have they actually been of use at all, really? There's no point in just winning the ball if you're not going to use it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it was such a concern before the game that it was almost like they were, oh my God, surprise, well, we have the ball. It's like, no, now what? You know, they weren't ready for the next bit. Or maybe France were ready. I mean, France have had their defensive concerns from last year. So I see Sean Edwards would have been, you know, particularly looking at this first game to make a statement and get all that sorted. And they were clearly targeting us. And there was I see a thing there. I don't know. I mean, usually I ignore when I see the name Eddie Jones in a headline, but I see that they're talking about something France were trying at the line out, trying to take the line out early so that we wouldn't have time to contest. Do you think that was happening, or is it a good idea?
Yeah, listen, I think lineouts nowadays, referees have this, they just, anything, if there's nobody going up against you, just going to let it go no matter how crooked it is. So you need to get set quickly to put somebody up quickly. If they were doing that, fair play to them. That's on our lack of, I don't want to say professionalism, but a lack of urgency to get there and to get somebody ready to get up. On our own ball, personally, I think France have a lot of really good spring heel jumpers in their back row as well as in their second row. I thought Jagu is a cracking player. And I thought he was near enough man of the match for me as well on Saturday. I thought he put a lot of pressure or when he was told to put pressure on our line. I thought he was a nightmare against us. To be fair, I think putting pressure on our line out, it's a really odd one. I keep going back to it. It's easy enough to win a line out, but you've got to look at what the end product is. Is it putting us in the right positions? I can't remember us mauling any lineouts at all on Thursday. You know, how do you suck players into midfield? And when France are getting off the line with good line speed and good numbers and putting us on our backside, surely a maul has to be called. And it doesn't matter where it's on the pitch; it's just going to suck people in and give space somewhere else. And you've got to realise that
penalties as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You have to milk a penalty here or there, especially when you're 22, 29 down. Just to put yourself in the right positions on the pitch, and how we used our lineouts was very, for me, as a bit of a lineout geek as well, it was a bit boring, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it was a strange one, all right. I mean, that thing about the lineouts. I mean, the article I saw was talking away. It was, oh my God, they weren't letting Ireland contest. This is disgraceful. They should change the laws. But as far as I'm concerned, I mean, even though I'm an Irish fan, if we complained about that, the rest of the rugby world say 2 words: choke tackle. You know what I mean? Yeah. You look at the laws and you try to make the most out of them. And if this is what the French were doing, I think that's pretty smart. Trying to take it out quickly.
As we'll see in the upcoming weeks, both in the new Super Rugby fascination with the laws and whatever they've changed or whatever else, the second new laws come into fruition, you've got coaches and analysts working their backsides off on what to do, how to beat the system or whatever you want to call it. And if we can't get something as simple as get guys into a line out quickly and set and ready to go, then that's on us. That's not on anybody else.
Absolutely. It's like an arms race.
Yeah.
But it's, but no, that's all fair enough. Okay. Well, listen, moving on to other things. I mean, I suppose, like I say, we're looking ahead to the rest of the tournament, and you were talking earlier about, there might be some selections that we might need to look at. What way are you thinking?
I don't want to be Debbie Downer here all the time talking about it, but the other game that we're going to talk about in Limerick, they didn't exactly set up many people. You're going to look across Irish Blue Sky or Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it over the last few days, and everybody wants their own guy in there. Who else have you got? You're talking about picking on form. The form is not great. Listen, Leinster are winning, but we're not exactly playing great stuff, right? Munster are having a bad patch at the moment. Connacht really haven't had a great season. They've been hit and miss. Ulster are doing a lot better, but they haven't exactly been hitting their straps coming into the competition. Listen, we're a small enough country with a small enough playing base, and we've probably, if we're brutally honest, as a country, we've been punching above our weight for the last couple of years. This might be a down year, a down period for us. But in terms of selection, you gotta say, is there anybody really putting their hands up? If they are, brilliant. Some lads, I think I used a term on Saturday in the WhatsApp group called Lions-itis. I think Keano caught onto it pretty quickly. Listen, I think Ireland are the only team of the, pardon my using this term, home nations, that actually win post Lions in 2018. Everything else has been France for the last donkey's years. So it's probably going to be France again this year. But, we haven't got 20 guys per position to pick from. We have probably 4 with the 4 teams. But nobody is playing out of their skin at the moment to put enough pressure on guys in possession of the jerseys at the moment to actually make a case. I think you've got to try different people. We need to build towards a World Cup. But listen, the IRFU are so on finishing at least 3rd for prize money, etc., in terms of Six Nations finishing positions, that I don't know if the coach has the the Leroy to go pick who he wants to all the time, because he's got this pressure on it all again and again and again. But we've got 3 or 4 sections of games coming up now between the Six Nations and this brand new fangled Nations Cup in the summer to actually see about getting some depth. Not only depth, but unearthing. We have to unearth a couple of players. We're not a young side in general, right across the board. You know, we're on the wrong side of 30 in a lot of positions, and we've got to see if guys are good enough to be there, and they have to get a chance to see if they're good enough.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, I suppose, I mean, the Irish team, we did have some injuries in like key positions, which I suppose we were maybe exposed that we didn't have the players to fill them, especially fullback. Hugo, you take Hugo out of the team, there are specialist fullbacks out there, but I think I can see why the Irish team is set up in such a way that they'd rather have versatile players to cover fullback as well, because you're talking about a World Cup squad. You're not going to pick 2 dedicated fullbacks. But you definitely do miss Hugo from there. But there was like Porter, there was Paddy McCarthy, just come up into the team. Ryan Baird, of course, had been playing well before his injury. Lots of names missing there. We'll talk more about the 15s in our bonus chat. But I mean, I suppose we're just in a position where we can't afford to lose too many players.
No, not at all. As I said, we don't have 100,000 players playing this great game of ours. Like, let's be fair, England, France, South Africa are probably 3 countries that everybody is jealous of the amount of numbers that they have picking. Everybody else is from a similar sort of amount of players they've got. So listen, as I said, we've punched above our weight for quite a while. We might need to just be patient with a lot of lads in terms of injuries, but also with the young lads coming through. You can't expect them to hit the ground running all the time. They're going to have to learn. They have to learn through losing at times as well. So we've got to see what we got.
Absolutely. Well, just 2 more quick areas I just want to ask you on, Mark, very quickly. Like particular, we're talking about particular players. I mean, Sam Prendergast, he's getting a lot of the heat. He's getting a lot of the attention for the display. How did you rate him overall on Thursday?
I think he did what he could. I think if Jack Crowley was in there, I think he might have done a couple of things differently, no doubt. But I don't think whoever plays 9 or 10 at the moment, if your pack is getting beaten up like that, I don't think it matters who plays 9 or 10, to be honest with you. Personally, on my own opinion is I think Harry Byrne is the better all-around player at this moment in time. I think he's had a bit more form than Bo Crowley and Prendergast for now. I think Sam... Listen, these guys are playing not at the top of their game, but at the top of the game for us. They're all trying their heart out, and we cannot criticize like we have any of the player. The criticism of one player in general is just it's barbaric, to be honest with you. If you think one player is the reason we lost this game at the weekend, then you're full of it. Listen, Sam has some real talent. Is he quite ready? Probably not. He was probably put forward a year too early for me. I think he should be playing. He needs to play more for Leinster. I saw a stat during the week that he still only played 3,000 minutes of first class rugby at fly half, and that's not a hell of a lot for a young player. He's played a lot as a young player, but not a hell of a lot when you consider the experience that you need to control a fly half position at international level.
And traditionally, 3,000 minutes. I mean, your first 3,000 minutes, none of them would be at test level. I mean,
probably really not. No.
In there, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think I read that somewhere, and then even somebody like Sasha in South Africa, the 10, he's already played 15% more minutes than Sam has, and he's probably a year later than Sam. So listen, let's relax on certain players in terms of putting pressure on them, whatever. If he's put there, he's got the coach's belief. He's got the players' belief as well. So we're supposed to be fans at the end of the day. We want to support these players and see how did it go. I didn't think Sam could have done anything different with the type of ball he got at the weekend. And the sort of ball you expect a fly half to play with. I don't think he's necessarily got the experience or the game at the moment to control a game from fly half on the back foot all the time. And the pack really, really needs to give him some better balls to work with than what they did on Thursday.
Yeah, absolutely. And just finally, and I'm deliberately leaving this until the last topic because it wouldn't have affected the result. But I suppose we always talk about individual decisions throughout the game. There was a couple in particular, I think, that really caught the eye. There was a DuPont deliberate knock on that could have been yellow carded. And there was a sort of a no arms tackle near the end as well that was deemed legal. What did you make of those?
If I was to start talking about the referee of the weekend and certain English referees in particular, we could be here for a very, very long time. And the DuPont one, I think we can't complain too much. We're all complaining about TMOs coming in and having too much influence on the game, etc., trying to speed up the game. Listen, they wouldn't have made any difference. So what I was sort of dumbfounded was the first two French tries, nothing happened in terms of looking at forward passes. Not saying they were forward, but potential forward passes. And this is a French thing. It doesn't matter if it's France against New Zealand or Ireland or whatever. The French production team are brilliant at not showing any replays, especially when it comes to the French team. I guarantee if Ireland had scored two tries like that, there'd be 47 different angles and at least the same amount of replays shown.
Yeah, I mean, I thought I read somewhere that they were trying to take that sort of selection power away from the production companies, but it seems to be a different thing when it happens in Paris. All right, they do tend to be selective over what they show, and they are very good at it. And again, a bit like the lineout thing, if you do it and you can get away with it, it's part and parcel of the game, I suppose.
100%.
So maybe the Irish camera the directors can
maybe Andy Farrell needs to get onto RTE's production team now before we play at the weekend and see what happens.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, listen, we had some comments from our Facebook page as well. Now, for the most part, they were a little more, I won't say positive, but just maybe not as negative as they could have been. We had Craig Grehan who said, all in all, a good day out. Look, we know we're in transition and we're not the numero uno team anymore. South Africa and France are very different teams. We need to figure out new ways to beat them. And then we had Aldrin John O'Brien who said, France outstanding. No one will come near to playing them like this. Okay, do you agree, or would you have said the same thing a different way? Well, if you want to get involved in the conversation, just head on over to our Facebook page at the Full-Time Whistle after Leinster and Ireland matches, and feel free to leave your thoughts. Okay, well, listen, we're going to leave it there for now. Many thanks to Mark for joining us. Looking forward to having you back on again soon.
Cheers, mate. Pleasure as always.
No problem. And as ever, be sure to stay tuned to Harpin On Rugby and all the socials during the week, starting with our bonus chat, which will be posting on YouTube Monday evening. Or like I said, we'll be harping on those other matches from the weekend. Then our 80+ column, where we try to look at the wider rugby world, that will post on Tuesday evening this week over on Substack. In the meantime, stay safe, everyone. Slán.